Does the US have a housing shortage? And is this the reason why home prices are as high as they are and why home affordability is so low? Now, the short answer is yes. And that's what I thought for a while. And I really didn't give it too much thought because when you take a look at where build rates are, they're well below where they were back in 2008. And I'm reading this book right now, Building from the Ground Up by Kevin Erdman, and that's what he argues as well, is that we have just underbuilt drastically in this country, and there's such a demand for housing that we must be undersupplied. But when you look a little bit deeper into the details, you'll see that it's a much more complicated of a story than just we need more homes. When we take a look at what's going on with vacancy rates, with household formation, you'll see that the story is much more nuanced. So we're going to talk about all that in this video. I wanted to thank the commenter, and I'm going to shout him out again in a second, but I got this video idea from somebody who commented on the channel. So if you have an idea, if you have a comment, you want to see me make a video about something, please leave me a comment. I always love hearing from you folks, and let's get right into the video here. So the comment is right here. I'm not even going to try to pronounce your username. I apologize. But right here, there are plenty of homes. They just aren't listed. We have a listing shortage, which at first response, I replied to that comment and was like, are you sure? Most people think that we have a shortage of around 3 to 4 million homes in the US. How can it just be a listing shortage and not a building shortage? But then I ran across this article here, and this is written in 2022. So about a little over 6 months ago, coming up on a year. But they talk about how the common misconception here, like we mentioned at the beginning of this video, is this chart right here, which shows the build rate leading up to today. So you can see that the build rate, which on the right side is the most recent data, this is coming right out of the Fred's charts, and this is something that I've talked about many times on this channel. We're well below historic norms of building. But when you compare it to this chart right below it, right below that Fred chart, it shows that the build rate has actually kept up with population growth over the past 15 years, where although we've built substantially less homes than we had in the past, we're building relatively in line with historic norms in terms of population growth. So although, yes, there's a bunch of home buyers coming of age and starting to jump into the housing market and buying homes, it doesn't appear that we've underbuilt to serve this population, at least if you go by historic norms. So you have to dig a little bit deeper to understand what is going on and why it feels like there aren't as many homes as there should be. And just to make it clear, we're kind of going to briefly summarize this article, but one of the main things that is driving the lack of affordability and the shortage of homes throughout the country are the household size. So if we take a look at this chart here, it's a trend of household size in the United States. And you can see back in the 60s, we're at about 3.3 persons per household. And now it's trended down steadily throughout the years until today, where we're at about 2.5 roughly persons per household. So the number of people in each household, and this is for units for rent as well as units, houses for sale, units for sale as well, has historically trended down. Our household sizes are getting smaller. And that can be for a variety of reasons. But at the end of the day, what that means is that there's the same amount of people and all of a sudden need more homes. And it's going to take more homes to satisfy the demand of people because the household size is smaller than it was in the past, which is very interesting, I think. And so what is the solution to this? Well, he argues that when you take a look at what's going on in the housing market and where the shortage is, it comes from the vacancy rate. And essentially, this is exactly what the commenter was talking about here, where we have a listing problem as opposed to a supply problem. There's not that many homes for sale. There's not that many homes available on the market, which is creating a vacancy issue. And if we take a look at what he talks about here, look, a well-functioning housing market needs a supply of vacant homes that are for sale or for rent. Right here, and he uses this example. A world where there are no cars available on dealership lots is one where it's very hard to buy a car, even if there are 100 million of them in the US, right? So if there's a bunch of homes in the United States, but none of them are for sale and none of them are for rent, then that's going to drive prices up. It's going to be very hard for you to buy or sell a home. And that appears to be what's going on in the overall housing market. When we take a look at Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac talking about how short we are of homes, we have right here in 2018, they estimated that we have a backlog of about 2.5 million homes, half from pent up demand, half from people who want to buy or want to rent, but are living with roommates, are living with their parents, things along those lines, and don't have the ability to do so because there's not enough supply for them to jump out into the market, either to buy or to rent. But then in 2020, when they reran these numbers, it jumped up from 2.5 million homes to 3.8 million homes. And the big difference is that the demand, the pent-up demand of people who wanted to buy but couldn't buy, that had to live with other people, that dropped to around 0.4 million. So out of 3.8 million, 0.4 million came from that pent-up demand. And the rest, the 3.4 million homes that we need, came from this vacancy rate, came from too few homes on the market. Now, what they don't mention in this article is the interest rates during 2021, 2022, and the effect that had on demand throughout the entire U.S. housing market. But still, I think it's interesting to note that this issue isn't as simple as building out of it. Isn't as simple as building more homes for more people to purchase. There's really a shift going on in the U.S. with household changes, with demographics and what's happening with household formation across the country. And all we need to see is a relatively small uptick in vacancies, where if we're short 3.8 million homes roughly, and we start to see more people shrink their household size or expand their household size, start to move in with family, move in with extended family, more people in the household, then that could bring more inventory to the market. Now, a place where most people are going to jump when they think inventory size, small uptick in inventory is all we need. This vacancy rate, we don't need to build more homes. We just need more homes available to buy or to rent. They're going to jump right over to Airbnb. And I wanted to talk about Airbnb as well, where this data is a little outdated here. This is from last year, so 2022, I guess almost 2 years ago now. This is right at the end of 2022, where they talk about Airbnb listings. This is from AirDNA, which is the Airbnb source website. And they say that in the United States, available listings are at around 1.3 million. They expect them to be at around 1.4 in 2023. And we should have the exact data on this soon. But between probably, let's just call it around 1.4 million Airbnb listings in the US. Now, will that be enough? If you ban Airbnbs, will that be enough to bring the vacancy rate down, to bring that added inventory to the market that we need? I don't think so, because if we're short 3.8 million homes, one, that's, if we just ban Airbnbs, that at most would bring 1.4 million homes to the market. But then the other side of it is how many of these listings on Airbnb are entire apartments. A lot of listings on Airbnb are just rooms for rent in people's homes. How many people who have an Airbnb, like I have a buddy, Davis, who rents out his basement, essentially apartment in Salt Lake City. And what he does is if Airbnb was banned, it's not like he would all of a sudden sell his home. He just wouldn't have that basement apartment available for rent on Airbnb. So I'm not sure if that's going to bring the added units to the market. Now, another side of the argument is it would help alleviate some of the vacancies, and that probably is true. It would alleviate the vacancies, but where we are now is it's not going to completely solve this problem. It's not going to completely cause home prices to crash if they ban Airbnbs across the US tomorrow. So what's the solution with these homes? Are building more homes, is that going to solve the problem? I think in the short term, the answer is yes. It does seem like if we built more homes, then that we could build our way out of this crisis. Over time, it's going to take many years before we have the ability to to do that, but it's also not as simple as just building our way out of this. And if there's shifts in household formation, now this is something that George Gammon talks about a lot on his channel, where in order to see home prices come down, you could just see a shift in household formation where more people start to live with each other. Then that could bring more vacancies to the market and cause supply to exceed demand and prices to decrease. So it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next few years. At the end of the day, I think we do need more building, but the topic is much more nuanced than I originally thought, and people have to be careful, myself included, to just looking at the overall building rate across the country and saying, wow, we've underbuilt, and that's why there's not as many homes. Really, there's shifts going on with household formation and many other factors that we have to take into account. I'll leave this article in the description. I encourage you all to read it. It's very informative. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed the video. All my contact information is in the description. Reach out to me if you need anything, and I'll see you in the next video.